In this episode, we talk about the problem of unemployment in the country and how it is spread across religious and caste lines. We also give you an update about the Pune Porsche crash case and why 2 doctors have been booked in the matter. But first, we talk about the massive fire that killed 28 people, including children, in the Rajkot city of Gujarat. Hi, I'm Shashank Bhargava, and you're listening to Three Things, the Indian Express news show. On Saturday, a fire broke out at an indoor game zone in Rajkot, killing 28 people, including children, while injuring 9 others. What's key to note is that the TRP gaming zone did not have a no objection certificate from the fire department, and its owner has now been booked for culpable homicide not amounting to murder. In this segment, my colleague Niharika Nanda speaks to Indian Express's Gopal Kateshiya, who has been reporting on the matter for the paper.
Gopal, to begin with, has the cause of the fire been established yet?
So, investigators are working on 2 theories. One is that some welding work could have, led to the fire. There was some welding work going on, fabrication was going on, and spark generated during the welding work could have caused the fire. Another theory the investigators are working on was that some electric short circuit could have caused the fire. So it remains yet to be established exactly what started the fire. There was some CCTV footage which surfaced last evening, which also showed some spark falling on plywood sheets and other combustible material. Yeah, so, the exact cause is still a matter of investigation, but these are broadly 2 reasons which could have led to the fire.
It is also said that the amusement park did not have a no objection certificate or an NOC from the fire department, which would have ensured that the property was fire resistant. So, talk about the kind of red flags that have now been discovered about this place.
Yeah, Rajkot Mayor Mrs. Naina Pedaria went on record saying that this amusement park did not have a fire NOC, nor did the operators of this amusement park had applied for an NOC. So that's very much a fact that the amusement park did not have a clearance from the fire and emergency department. And this amusement park had come on 2 party plots on Nanda Road of Rajkot city. It's a posh area. And there were 2 sections in this amusement park. One was indoor gaming zone and another was outdoor gaming zone. So outdoor included go-karting, etc. And indoor gaming zone had a lot of indoor game facilities. So that indoor game zone was set up in a tin shed. So that shed was basically made of tin sheets and steel frames. And to control the environment inside the shed, we are told that the proprietors had created shadow walls of thermocols and plastic foam sheets, and fire department officers are saying that these are highly inflammable materials. So that is one part of that there were a lot of inflammable material inside the shade, and secondly there were no proper fire safety arrangements in place. So we are told that there were AC ducts, but there were no large windows, no where the entry and exits were large enough. So that made this entire structure prone to fire hazards.
Right. And can you talk to us about the victims of this incident? Tell us about the casualties and those who have been injured.
Yeah, so the latest figure of death toll is 28 casualties and 9 persons injured. Out of them, the injured, most of them have been discharged from hospitals. But it remains a daunting task for the authorities to identify the bodies of the victims. The bodies have been charred beyond recognition. So police are taking help of forensics experts. So they have extracted samples, DNA samples, and are matching with their relatives. So more than 24 hours later, only bodies of 4 victims have been identified and have been handed over to their relatives. And officers are saying that it can take several hours and even several days for completing the process of identification of bodies, because DNA matching takes time.
Right. And what kind of steps have been taken by the authorities?
So the government action and reaction was swift. So Gujarat's Home Minister, Mr. Harsh Sanghvi, rushed to Rajkot overnight. The next morning, that is on Sunday morning, Chief Minister, Mr. Bhupendra Patel himself came over to Rajkot and inspected the site of the accident. He also met with the kin of the victims and the injured who were being treated in hospital. So that apart, government has also announced ex gratia, rupees 4 lakh to the kin of victims and rupees 50,000 to the injured. So that is one part. Secondly, on Monday morning, government suspended 7 offices. So they include 2 police officers, 2 engineers of the roads and building department of the state government, 1 engineer of the Rajkot Municipal Corporation, 1 assistant town planner of the Rajkot Municipal Corporation, and 1 station officer of fire station on Kalawad Road of the Rajkot city. And the suspension orders cited that these officers were utterly careless while on duty. They committed dereliction of duty, and that's why they should be suspended.
Right. And Gopal, now a special investigation team, that is an SIT, has been established by the government. Do we know what all it is looking into?
So that SIT's brief is to look into if there were any lapses on the part of any government department, what the proprietors were doing, and had the facility had any proper fire safety arrangements, firefighting arrangement, fire safety clearance, etc. And the government has ordered that SIT to submit its primary report within 3 days and final report within 10 days. Secondly, the Rajkot City Police Commissioner, Mr. Raju Bhargava, has also formed a special investigation team to investigate the criminal case which has been registered against the partners and proprietors of this STP gaming zone.
And we understand that at the moment, 3 people have been arrested. Talk about the charges against them.
Yeah, the FIR has been registered under the IPC section 304, which is culpable homicide not amounting to murder, 308, attempt to commit culpable homicides, and the other sections of the IPC. 6 persons were named in the FIR. They include Dawal Thakkar, then Prakash Chand Hiran, Yuvraj Singh Solanki, Rahul Rathore, Ashok Singh Jadeja, and Kirit Singh Jadeja. So Ashok Singh Jadeja and Kirit Singh Jadeja, they are 2 brothers, and they are owners of the party plot on which this gaming zone was functioning. They are also partner in this gaming zone enterprise. So that's been the progress in the investigation of the criminal case so far.
And Gopal, could you talk about the kind of political reactions this incident has prompted?
There have been, a lot of compassion coming from political leaders as well as from the general public. So the Chief Minister, Mr. Patel, posted on social media his compassion and commiseration. Soon afterwards, Prime Minister, Mr. Narendra Modi, also expressed shock and grief over this incident. There has been reaction from the Congress, the main opposition party in Gujarat as well. Gujarat Congress President Mr. Shakti Singh Gohil visited the site of the accident yesterday. So did Mr. Paresh Dhanani, the former leader of Congress Legislative Party and who is the Congress candidate for Rajkot Lok Sabha seat. So on the one hand, the ruling BJP has been claiming that it has done all it can do in this incident, and to provide succor to the victims. Congress, on the other hand, is trying that there was carelessness on the part of the government. Yeah, so that's the kind of reaction. But well, Mr. Rahul Gandhi had also offered his condolences to the victims and said that he hopes that the government takes suitable action against those responsible for this incident.
And Gopal, in the end, could you talk about the concerns this incident raises, especially considering the kind of establishment this was?
Yeah, this is a very interesting question. So I was talking to a few functionaries of the Rajkot Municipal Corporation, inquiring as to why did the civic body remain mute spectator when this huge gaming zone complex had been functioning for the last 3 years. So they were citing that, because the gaming zone was functioning out of a temporary structure, the shade was a temporary structure as per the definition of these people. So they said that they had no jurisdiction actually to take action because it was a temporary structure. The gaming zone did not require a formal approval from the fire and emergency department, so even the fire NOC. This is one claim. Okay, and they were also citing that there are at least around 2 dozen such gaming zones. So box cricket has proliferated like anything in Rajkot. There are a lot of facilities which have come up over the past 1 or 2 years. Now the general development control regulations, they say that they do not apply to such facilities. So senior government officials are saying that probably it's time to look into this area, which presently looks like a gray area. No extant law probably covers it. So that raises a lot of questions and a lot of, I would say, thinking to be done by the government.
And next, we talk about unemployment. During the ongoing Lok Sabha polls, unemployment has emerged as perhaps the biggest concern for voters across the country. According to a pre-poll survey conducted by the reputable Center for the Study of Developing Societies, or CSDS, 29% of participants said that unemployment will be the biggest factor in deciding their vote. So to discuss the extent of this problem in the country, its trajectory during the Modi years, and how it is divided along religious and caste lines, we speak to Indian Express's Udit Misra, who writes on the economy for the paper. Udit, firstly, do we have a sense of how many people are unemployed right now? People who are looking for work but aren't getting any?
So, unemployment in India can be defined in different ways. When you're going to study about it, decide who is unemployed and who is employed in different ways. And as a result, there are all kinds of numbers that are thrown around. And the range is quite remarkable. Anywhere between 20 million to 200 million. That's the range over which the total number of unemployed people in India exists.
And would you say that is a fairly wide range?
That's a fairly wide range, and it essentially has to do with the fact on how you define whether a person is employed or not. Do you think that working 1 day in a month is employment? Do you think working 1 day in a week is employment? How many hours working, or what kind of work is considered to be employment? All of those issues become pertinent, and that's why we find that there are some differences between different organizations when they come up with unemployment numbers or analysis around it.
And so then, Udit, is there a particular metric that we find trustworthy that we can consider while talking about unemployment in the country?
So globally, unemployment rate is a metric which is used to assess the labor stress in the economy. And it is generally considered to be a valid metric to understand. If you didn't know anything about the economy, you could look at unemployment rate and understand what is happening. But there is a curious thing that has been happening in India. It is that unemployment rate is basically calculated as a percentage of the people who are demanding jobs. So when we say unemployment rate is 10%, what we are essentially saying is that 100 people demanded jobs and only 90 of them could actually land a job. 10 of them kept demanding but did not get it. So that is unemployment rate. But there is a curious thing happening in India for the last many years, is that the number of, or the proportion of people demanding jobs itself is coming down. So instead of 100 people, say another year down the line or 10 years down the line, only say 80 people are demanding jobs. So unemployment rate in itself is inaccurately assesses the labor problems in the country, because the denominator, which is the total number of people demanding jobs, itself is shrinking. And there is a curious question further, why are fewer people demanding jobs in India? And the answer to that is that people keep trying for a job, and after 5 years, 6 years, they get disappointed and pull themselves out of the labor force. So in that case, for India, the most correct metric, or the metric that would give you the most apt picture, is something called the employment rate. So you have both unemployment rate and employment rate to understand the complete picture in India.
And when we talk about unemployment, could you talk about how long India has been struggling with this problem and what the scenario has been like since 2014?
Unemployment has always been a problem in this country because we are a labor surplus country. And for the most part, economic growth was not fast enough to absorb all the labor. And we saw this in the fact that a lot of people were involved in agriculture. They continue to be way too many people involved in agriculture. And that is seen as disguised unemployment. So on paper, it might say that one person is involved in agriculture, but we don't know whether they are truly productive or are they really working and earning their income, or are they just whiling away their time. So in India, unemployment has always been a problem, but it is also true that, from the official metrics also, the ones that government departments and institutions have brought out, unemployment rate has trebled, become 3 times between 2011-12, which was one phase, and 2017-18. So there has been a ramping up of unemployment rate over the last 10-15 years. And the reasons there are also have to do with how India's demography is changing. More and more people are coming into the youth cohort, and more people are getting educated. They want more jobs. So there are organic reasons why this is happening, apart from the fact that our economy is not growing as fast, and it's not growing in the manner in which it creates more jobs. So it's not just about the pace of growth, but is also the quality of growth.
And could you talk about how widespread this problem is, in the sense that does any one section of the population face this problem more than the others?
So if you look at it very broadly, then you would say that in India, youth unemployment is the biggest concern. Again, that has to do with the fact that we have more people in our youthful ages.
Right. India is a relatively young country.
So that demographic bulge that we talk about, which is likely to give us dividends, or we hope that it will give us dividends, is essentially more and more people in the productive youthful ages. And that is where the highest unemployment rates are. Also known as the fact that as India's youth gains more and more educational attainment, the unemployment rate rises. So the unemployment rate is lower for somebody who has studied only till class 10th or class 12th, but it continues to rise as you go to graduation, post-graduation and PhD. The highest would be in those who have a PhD. So that's another area of concern, that as you study and get greater educational attainment, you face a higher unemployment rate. And that again has to do with the fact that maybe you don't have the kind of jobs that sort of align with the kind of education that you've got.
Okay, so the youth is one section of the population that is facing this problem. But can we also look at unemployment and see how it differs along religious lines?
Yes, I mean, we have data from CMIE, which looks at unemployment because they do surveys and collect the data. So they have their unemployment and employment metrics, and they also give disaggregated data for religious communities, and within religious communities, then say for Hindus, they also give it caste-wise. So we have data that comes through on both these metrics.
Right, so talk about how this data is divided. If we are looking at it along religious lines, talk about the extent to which it is affecting, say, Hindus and those from other communities like Muslims and Sikhs.
Yeah. So the first thing to understand is that, if you look at it from religious perspective and say take the 4 main religions, Hindu, Muslim and Christian and Sikhs, then you find that the demand for jobs has come down, what is technically called the labor force participation rate. That rate has been coming down over the years. So CMI has data since 2016 when they started their data collection. And so over the last 8 years, we find that across all the main religions, the labor force participation rate, the demand for jobs has been coming down. It has come down the most amongst Hindus. And if you then calculate the unemployment rate across the main religious communities, you'll find that the Sikhs have seen the highest increase in unemployment rate. their unemployment rate has gone up by almost 2.5 percentage points over the last 8 years. Hindus have also seen an increase in their unemployment rate. The other religious communities have sort of seen a decline in their unemployment rate. Muslims, Christians, and Buddhists have seen a decline in their unemployment rate, but Hindus and Sikhs have seen an increase in unemployment rate. And if you see it from the employment rate perspective, employment rate very simply is the total number of people who are employed as part of the working age population. So you take all the Hindus 15 years and above and see how many Hindus are employed or with a job. And that basic number is called the employment rate. So we find that if you look at just the employment rate, then Hindus have suffered the highest decline in employment rate. So in 2016, there were around 43% of all Hindus who were demanding over 15 years of age had a job, and that proportion has fallen to 37% in 2023-24. So over 8 years, the decline is almost 6 percentage points for Hindus. The decline is there for Muslims, Christians, and Sikhs also, but the highest is amongst the Hindus.
And so, Udit, are we saying that compared to these other religions, the Muslim community has done better off in that sense?
If you look at it from unemployment rate, then the unemployment rate for Hindus has risen by the same amount as the unemployment rate for Muslims has fallen, over the last 8 years. So if you do a direct comparison, you would say that just looking at unemployment rate, you'll find that the Muslims have done better than Hindus. If you look at it employment rate wise, then you'll find that both Hindus and Muslims have been hurt by employment rate declines, but Hindus have been hurt far more than Muslims.
And Udit, you also mentioned that this data, we can also see it along caste lines, right? So talk about how this data changes or the kind of differences we see when we look at caste Hindus.
Yeah, so again, if you calculate the unemployment rate by caste, you'll again find that the upper caste Hindus have the highest unemployment rate. And there is something called the intermediate castes. These are, say, the Jats, Gujars, the Marathas, who are often aspiring to be part of the OBCs. Intermediate castes have also seen a high increase in unemployment rate. So if you just look at unemployment rate, upper caste Hindus and intermediate castes have seen the highest increase in unemployment rate. But if you look at the employment rate data, if you break it according to caste, it is the upper caste Hindus who have the lowest employment rate. So that employment rate was around 38, 39% in 2016, and it has fallen to 34.5% in 2024. So basically in 8 years, there has been a decline of over 4 percentage points for the upper caste Hindus. But the decline in OBCs and SCs has been even more, over 6 percentage points each in the employment rate. Employment rate essentially being the total number of people with a job and who are above 15 years of age. So yeah, that's the brief understanding of employment metrics across religious and caste divisions.
And do we know why this appears to be the case? Why do we see these differences, these divisions?
So this is a fairly complicated topic in terms of, while we may have disaggregated data of employment metrics across religious and caste lines, it is not easy to pinpoint why one community is exactly worse off or better off. That may require a much more disaggregated study to understand what is happening. But there is obviously no government level discrimination implied in any of these numbers. The broader point is that this government in particular has been unwilling to accept that unemployment is a stress. And what the data is showing is that unemployment stress or employment related stress has been there across the board, across communities. And often Hindus have, this is what the data is showing, that Hindus have actually been worse affected by the employment stress.
And Udit, the other thing is that this government's approach has basically been that, the private sector should be more involved and responsible for creating jobs than the government. So could you talk about that aspect a bit?
Yeah, so I think that is a broader, larger point, and that is something that is also playing out in the current election, where Mr. Modi has been saying from the very beginning of his term that he wants a small government, which means that the size of government, which means that size of public officials will be lower or a smaller size, which means government itself will not create as many jobs, but will hope that the economy grows through private sector and private sector creates more jobs. Now, there is a problem here that India has a massive demand for jobs, and even when the economy grows fast, we grow at 8% or 9%, there is no guarantee that we'll create as many jobs. So India has experienced fairly repeatedly prolonged periods of jobless growth. And some people now have started talking about not just jobless growth, but a growth with reduction of jobs. And the private sector typically doesn't care about the larger problem of unemployment. They care about their profitability. So if they can increasingly move towards the use of machines or any other capital in that sense, they will replace labor if it is profitable for them. So that's a big area of debate. You see the opposition parties, especially led by Congress, are talking about giving more and more government jobs. So that's the big government promise. And this is a typical divide between the left of center and right of center kind of economics, where the right of center economists or economic ideology believes that the government should play a very small role in the economy, have fewer people. So that's the stress in the system.
And in the end, we provide an update on the Pune Porsche case, in which 2 people were mowed down by a speeding luxury car driven by a minor who was said to have been under the influence of alcohol at the time. Yesterday, the Pune police stated that the doctors at the government-run Sassoon General Hospital in the city discarded the minor's blood sample in a dustbin and sent another person's blood to the forensic lab. Pune Police Commissioner Amitesh Kumar said that Dr. Ajay Tavre, the head of Sassoon Hospital's Forensic Medicine Department, and Dr. Shri Hari Harnol have been arrested in connection with this matter. The police commissioner said that it was prima facie known that the minor's father, who is a top realtor from Pune, was in touch with Dr. Tavre. Kumar said that anticipating the blood sample report might be tampered with, the police took another blood sample from the minor in the evening of the same day for DNA testing. Speaking to reporters, Kumar mentioned that the second blood sample was sent to another government-run hospital in Aundh as a precautionary measure. However, since the sample was taken 20 hours after the crash, no alcohol was detected. It is important to note that while all blood reports have now come back negative, the police have stated that they have evidence, including CCTV footage and bills from 2 restaurants, showing that the minor had been allegedly drinking with his friends before the accident. Though speaking to the reporters, the commissioner said that the blood report on liquor consumption of the minor does not matter, saying that their case is that he was in full senses while committing the offense. You were listening to 3 Things by The Indian Express. Today's show was written and produced by me, Shashank Bhargava, and was edited and mixed by Suresh Pawar. If you like the show, then do subscribe to us wherever you get your podcasts. You can also recommend the show to someone you think will like it, share it with a friend or someone in your family. It's the best way for people to get to know about us. You can tweet us at Express Podcasts and write to us at podcasts@indianexpress.com.